Happy Women's History Month, and welcome to Season 3 of Get to Know Women in Energy, where we share the stories, ideas, and achievements of women across the energy sector. In this series, we sit down with trailblazers and industry experts who have and continue to pave the way for women in the energy industry. I'm your host, Ebun Adewole-Dickson. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Scyller Borglum, Vice President for WSP USA's underground storage market in the Energy National Business Line. In addition to salt cavern development for temporary gas storage, Scyller is also the Deputy Project Manager for the cavern development portion of ACES, Advanced Clean Energy Storage in Delta, Utah, the first ever utility-scale hydrogen production and storage facility in the world. Scyller has over 2 decades of experience in ground-up petroleum engineering, geological engineering research, oil and gas, and the energy industry. She has worked in oil fields all over the Rocky Mountain front located in Texas and in the Bakken, North Dakota. While in graduate school, Scyller conducted geomechanical studies on various salt and rock types while working at RESPEC, a world-renowned geomechanical testing laboratory. She then went on to serve as an Oak Ridge Institute of Science and Education Fellow at the National Energy Technology Laboratory in Morgantown, West Virginia. In addition, Scyller is not only published in her academic fields, petroleum and geological engineering, but she also co-authored the textbook, The Fossil Fuel Revolution, Shale Gas and Tide Oil. Scyller, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Ebun.
I'd like to kick off with learning more about your role as Vice President at WSP. What does a day in the life look like for you?
Never the same as the prior one. So I love my position because it is one that really is quite varied. There are days when I am heavily into the technical work and we're problem solving on a well or a cavern that is complicated geologically. There are days when I rely on my background in politics and I'm shaking hands and meeting with elected officials and different agencies who are impacted by the work that we do. There are days when I'm either writing papers or presenting at conferences. And of course, I also am embedded with a wonderful team. I'm not formally in operations, but I'm embedded with our operations team and lead and participate several subgroups within that organization. So every single day is nonstop and 100 miles an hour, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
You went back to school at 32 years old to get a Master of Science in Engineering degree, and then right after, you went on to pursue a PhD in Geology and Geological Engineering. Can you tell us more about this decision, and can you share what your experience was like as a student?
Absolutely. So more than 20 years ago, I lived in Norway and studied on a Fulbright scholarship, and that's where I fell in love with the energy industry, with oil and gas in particular. And I knew that's where I wanted to be. And for a long time, I thought that I would get there as an attorney and go to law school because I knew I enjoyed writing and speaking. Well, I never did get those ultra high LSAT scores that you need to get into one of the top law schools. And even though I'd been accepted to several schools, something just wasn't quite right. And I had the opportunity to take a calculus course and a geology course while I was working as a specialty pharmaceutical sales representative. And I thought, I am going to fail both of these. I had been out of school at that point for 15 years. There's no way I can go back and study heavy duty math, heavy duty science. I loved it. And I ended up getting an A in one and a B in the other. And I just thought, okay, I could do this. So at 32, you're right, I went back to Montana Tech. I grew up in Montana, and at the time I had been living in Texas. The heat was too much. I'd been there for several years and was ready to get back to cooler climes. So I moved to Butte, Montana, loved studying petroleum engineering, loved everything about the university, had an absolute blast there. And then, as you noted, I worked up and down the Rocky Mountain front. I had internships with a service provider, with an independent, with a major, and landed in the Bakken working for a major. And then as the fortunes would have it, right after I started, the oil boom busted and I lost my job, but I was already in my PhD program at South Dakota School of Mines. So I had wanted to study and still find very fascinating the interplay between the fluid and the rock mechanics. And I went to study that at South Dakota School of Mines, which is where I started working at RESPEC, as you mentioned earlier, the world-class geomechanical laboratory. And I started working on salt. And so in the lab, we do destructive testing, and I did specimen prep and helped get the samples not only ready, but then also testing, and was fascinated with that. Well, then fast forward several years, I ended up in a job where we store petroleum products in salt. And of course we do hydrogen, and we can store CO2 in depleted oil and gas reservoirs. So it's amazing to me how all of these bits and pieces that you would think are disparate and unrelated end up coming back and knitting together for a really robust and interesting career. I can weave in my time as a specialty pharmaceutical sales rep. That's where you have to be out there shaking a lot of hands and be accustomed to rejection. There's also politics, where you have to be on the lookout for long-term and unintended consequences with decisions. You can't just make those decisions that are right in front of your nose. You need to have that really long view as you're looking out over the horizon. So all of these different aspects of my personal career have woven together for just a really, really rich tapestry, I think, that makes my day very, very fun.
Thank you for sharing, Skylar. That's very inspiring. It shows that you can have a whole new interest in, a completely different industry at any time of your life. You can restart and explore something new at any time. So that's very good to know. Your new book, STEM Study Habits: Successfully Navigate Math, Science, Engineering, and Life for Your Degree, is coming out this year. What inspired you to write a book for young adults in STEM?
I am so glad you asked this question. Frankly, Ebun, one of the challenges that I think we are facing in this country is that we do not have enough students coming out of high school who have the confidence to study STEM disciplines. And petroleum engineering is a remarkably versatile degree, but we also have civil engineering, mechanical engineering, geological engineering, electrical engineering. We have all of these different engineering opportunities, and the sciences, of course, mathematics, applied mathematics, statistics. And I think there's students coming out of school don't have the confidence to know that if you hang in there, if you keep slugging it out, you actually can get to the finish and you can have a remarkable career. One of the things that I'm most proud of with this book isn't that I did it all right, and it isn't that I understood it all. It's that I didn't understand any of it when I started. I like a lot of students, pretty smart in high school, didn't have to develop any study habits of consequence. And then and I even took math and science in high school. And then when I ended up going to study engineering, which my first bachelor's was in business and my first master's was actually in theological studies. I went to a divinity school. Some of us, it takes a little longer to figure out where we're supposed to be. And so when I landed finally in engineering, I didn't have those really critical skills that are so helpful when you're taking on a daunting task like an engineering degree, like a mathematics degree, like a science degree. So it's really exciting for me to be able to take all of these hard-fought lessons that I learned, and frankly, the book that I wish somebody could have handed me when I went back to school, to be able to give that to students and provide that opportunity for students to say, look, these are the fundamentals. This is what it's going to take. There really are no hacks. Okay. We would love there to be some quick fix, some silver bullet. It comes down to practice. It comes down to repetition. It comes down to showing up for class every day, taking notes, all of these fundamentals. And then how do you arrange your study time? What's the most effective way to study? There are a lot of different ways that you can study. There are a lot of different ways to approach your homework time. But in the end, how can we how can we do this and get more students into STEM programs and successfully complete those STEM programs so that our country, which right now is going through an amazing energy transition, has really well qualified individuals to carry it forward. Energy is something that we will need as a civilization until we, this is a little macabre, but until we no longer exist as a civilization. We will always need energy. And anyone who is thoughtful and in the energy industry knows there is no free lunch. Every form of energy comes with its pros and its cons. So how do we make those best decisions, right? So that's in the policy arena. And then how do we execute? So that would be in the engineering and technology arena. These are important questions, and it reminds me to give a shout out to those who are technically trained, but maybe like me realize they're not going to spend the rest of their professional life modeling. Maybe there are some who do, and hats off to them. We need them. But I am somebody who is very technically trained, and at the end of the day knows she's better off presenting to lay people and making those arguments and discussions with lay people, communicating with them what we need in the energy industry. So if there are people out there who find it interesting but don't see themselves crunching numbers for the rest of their professional career, we have a place for you too. And that was the other reason I wanted to write this book, because I don't believe anybody goes wrong studying math, science, or engineering. If you come with that background, whether you go into technical writing, whether you go into a public servant opportunity or a nonprofit, if you come with those critical thinking skills that you learn in a STEM degree, you will do so much better, and you will have such better advice to give to people who are asking than somebody who doesn't. So I'm a big fan of STEM degrees. I think we need a lot more in this country, and I'm hopeful that my book will inspire others to take that challenge on and successfully graduate.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure this book will not only help people that are young students hoping to develop some skills, but people that are hoping to go back into the education and try to find themselves. When you entered in the oil and gas industry, you started out as a production engineer. Comparing that to your current role as a vice president, what skills have helped you succeed in every role throughout your career?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I love this one, because this is where our technical expertise, this is what gives us that foundation, so we have the confidence to go forward. But then, and I talk about this in my book, we need to have those soft skills. And I think there's a perception that soft skills are weak. In fact, they're not. They're very, very difficult to master. So for me, the most success that I've had is my ability to communicate and relate to people. I know when I am in a meeting or in the field, there's a high probability that somebody out there knows more than I do about the project at hand. I don't have any issue with that. I'm generally there in the capacity of somebody who wants to learn and understand. Now, I have things that I can contribute, certainly, but I think engineers and scientists can inadvertently shoot themselves in the foot if they come out with this feeling, this sense that they have to know everything and they have to have the answer for everything. We don't. Many times I have found we serve as a almost a conveyor of information and getting people to talk and discuss and figure out what the problem is. I have yet to meet a single person in my career who really truly does have every single answer. And the best projects, the most responsive projects, frankly, are those that are solved by teams. So for me, the most important skill is being able to communicate with other individuals, to put people at ease in a setting where we need to sometimes have difficult conversations about why something happened or why something didn't happen that was supposed to. And that really has made all of the difference in the world. So reaching out to people at my level, reaching out to people on different levels on an org chart, continually seeking information and continually putting myself in a position of learner and just wanting to be somebody who facilitates, I think has had the most profound impact on my career.
Thank you for that. I agree. Soft skills, it may seem that soft skills are something that most people are born with, but it is something that you can develop with time and effort.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And on the same lines, what kind of qualities do you think are necessary to be a woman in leadership positions?
It is different. It is different when you're a woman in leadership positions. For me, one of the hardest things is to say no. And there are a couple of reasons for this. Number one, I find everything interesting. I really do, no matter what it is. And I finally hit maximum capacity this past year where I had responsibilities for my primary clients, which are underground storage, but then also driving the CCS and CCUS market and driving the hydrogen market. Well, those are really 3 full-time positions. And I was trying to push all of them forward. I'm so happy to report that we now have our own independent hydrogen lead. And I think we're very close to getting a CCS lead, both of which take a tremendous amount off of me to allow me to focus in on my actual work that I want to do. So for me, saying no has been hard. I think we also feel like as women, we represent all women. So we want to put on our best face. We want to put on our best effort. We want to put on our best outcome. And that, you know what? We all make mistakes, men and women. I think it's easy to say that woman failed rather than the engineer failed, or that woman screwed up rather than that engineer screwed up. So having that sense of still, because there are so few women in this industry, particularly at this level, that anything I do reflects on all women. I think that's a hard pill to swallow, and try and both represent well and do an excellent job, but also make the point that we are still individuals and we do not represent the entire gender. I think we have a natural inclination toward collaboration, and that is a positive thing. But I have noticed that I also tend to take on more mentees than most of my male colleagues who are my level. There's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, I want everyone coming up behind me to be successful. And if I can help contribute to that, I'm overjoyed, right? But I'm not a professional mentor. I'm actually vice president for underground storage. And so trying to keep that to a certain percentage of my work week or work month has been a bit of a challenge. I will also say that typically women can be put into the party planner mode for an office. And I'm very appreciative that the colleagues I have do not put me in that mode. I don't know if that's a commentary on my party planning efforts, but for the most part, that is not expected, that I am the note taker, and it is not expected that I will plan all of the parties. So those are a couple of obvious outcomes, I think, that women can fall into if they're not more deliberate about not taking that role on. So I think on the positive side, we have a very collaborative approach typically to doing good work. And I've lived by this saying my entire professional life: every virtue carries within it the seeds of its own destruction. So anything taken too far can fail. And that's why we have to be very diligent in drawing those lines, in not taking on additional work unless it's fine to chip in and help the team out. But if it's an actual additional amount of work, an additional role, there needs to be additional compensation. It's fine to mentor and support people within your organization, but the decision needs to be made, and it's individual, but the decision needs to be made: how much time am I going to commit to that every week or every month? If you enjoy party planning, okay, knock yourself out. But the expectation should never be, well, she can just do this because this is what she can do. That's certainly not something that's appropriate. And then note taking, well, I'm left-handed, so good luck trying to read my notes. I think I don't ever have, like I said, I've never been put in that role in this position as vice president. I really do think, as I look back over my career, the most significant challenge of being a woman in this industry is that feeling of, I am a woman, therefore I represent all women. And that's a pretty heavy mantle to carry, I will say.
I definitely agree. All we can do is do our best, recognize our strengths and our weaknesses, and just try not to fall into the box of, I need to represent every woman here, because, that can be a sticky slope. Thank you so much for
Ebun,
that.
you speak the truth on that. Yes.
And it's not something that we only go through just in the oil and gas industry, but in all industries,
Yes.
where women are the minority. So it's very good to be able to point out something like that and recognize it. Scyller, thank you so much for joining us today on Get to Know. Your presence and contributions truly enriched our discussion and provided valuable insights and advice. And I really look forward to your book release.
Thank you so much, Ebun. I'm excited to be here. What a joy to visit with you.
We're so excited to have you as well. If you'd like to connect with Scyller, you can follow her on LinkedIn, and her profile will be linked in the description. But thank you once again, Scyller, for being a part of this conversation.
My pleasure.
You can watch the Get to Know Women in Energy series anytime on demand. Visit SP's Energy Stream site at streaming.sp.org. I'm Adewole-Dickson, and we'll see you next time on Get to Know.